Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about septemics. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is something that is new that we need to think about, or is this something that we already know and we are unfamiliar with the term? What is it, right? So, thankfully, I have Jim here who's going to help us really think about this in another way. So, Jim, thank you so much for coming on to my show and sharing your time and your perspective with me. I appreciate it so much. So let's go ahead and dive right in. What does septemics mean? What does it mean?
Okay. Well, before I say that, let me just give you one sentence to give you some context so you have a little bit of a frame of reference about this. I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book Septemics Hierarchies of Human Phenomena.
Okay.
Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septemics comprises a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. There are 35 such scales, each of which is unique. And together they span the spectrum of human experience, by which I mean any problem, dilemma, situation, difficulty that any person has that has anything to do with people can successfully be analyzed by one or more of these scales, usually more than one.
That's interesting. So what makes septemics different than psychology?
Septemics is much broader than psychology. Psychology is defined as the study of behavior. There's a lot in septemics that's outside of the study of behavior. For instance, there's a scale of civilization which tells you how civilizations evolve. There's a scale of, let me look at my list. There's a scale of government.
Okay.
That's outside the scope of psychology. You're dealing with groups, big groups, complicated groups. There's a scale of exchange, which is really about economics.
So how did you discover all of this? Like, what made you fall? Well, how did this fall on your lap?
Okay. Well, the story really begins when I was accepted into engineering school at the age of 16.
Okay.
Now, of course, I thought at that time that I was going to be engineering physical things such as electrons, airfoils, motors, and such. But by the time I had my master's degree, it was clear to me that I wanted to engineer the human psyche,
Okay.
which is an immaterial thing, because it is the area of greatest unknown and mystery. And more importantly, it is the area in which we as a race are failing miserably. 95% of the problems that people have in industrialized society are because they don't understand people, don't understand the boss, don't understand the mother, don't understand the son, don't understand the spouse.
Correct.
That is why more than 50% of the marriages in the United States end in divorce. Because you didn't understand the person or you wouldn't have married them in the first place.
Yeah, there's lack of understanding.
Right. So this subject solves that problem across 35 axes.
Wow.
So I wrote this book to help people. Each of these 35 scales provides the user with an infallible way of determining the salutariness or beneficialness of any group, individual, or activity. If the group, individual, or activity moves persons up the scales, it's beneficial or positive. If it moves them down, it's detrimental or negative. So I'm giving you a yardstick by which to measure human affairs.
Huh.
Which is
So what are the seven layers then?
well,
I mean, levels.
Remember I said each scale is unique. So you cannot learn anything about scale A by studying scale B. So
Correct.
What they have in common is that they take a large area and break it down into the 7 component parts that occur in a sequence.
Okay.
Now, if I may, I'd like to tell you the names of the 35 scales, because then you'll know exactly what subject matter is being consumed here or being analyzed here.
Yeah, please. Okay. I would love to know those.
24 of these 35 scales are what I call individual scales, meaning they're mainly about an individual. Okay. And 11 of them are group scales, meaning they're mainly about a group. So these are the individual scales. Okay. The scale of basic purposes, the scale of personal influence, the scale of choice, the scale of permeation, the scale of thought, the scale of evaluation, the scale of motivation, the scale of control, the scale of stopping, the scale of scholarship, the scale of literacy, the scale of human ability, the scale of memory, the scale of spiritual identity, the scale of mental deletion, the scale of aberration, the scale of physical fitness, the scale of justification, the scale of belief, the scale of equanimity, the scale of attack, the scale of conflict, and the scale of reaction. And these are the group scales: the scale of relationships, the scale of life spheres, the scale of government, the scale of civilization, the scale of survival, the scale of management, the scale of exchange, the scale of communication, the scale of allegiance, the scale of sexuality, and the scale of politics. Any one of these scales by itself could dramatically improve the life of the reader. So let me give you an example of how that would work. Mm-hmm. I mentioned the scale of motivation. Mm-hmm. Motivation is one of the most important things to know about a person. Mm-hmm. That is how the police have been solving crimes for centuries. They look for motives, right? Mm-hmm. So somebody's been murdered. They say, well, this guy has no motive. He has nothing to gain by this guy dying, so we're not going to look at him as a suspect. He's just a bystander. But then they find out, wait a minute, there's an insurance policy. And the wife is the beneficiary, and it's for $500,000. So she becomes a suspect. Now, she may not have done it, but I'm just saying that is the thought process that they use of how they go about trying to solve crimes. They look for motive, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's the scale of motivation. So let me show you how useful this is. You could ask, what is my wife's motivation toward me? What is my son's motivation toward me? What is my next door neighbor's motivation toward me? What is my boss's motivation toward me? What is my grandmother's motivation toward me? Now, every time you correctly spot it, you'll have an insight. Now I see what's going on with grandma. She has this motivation. That's why she does X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. You see? Now, you could keep doing this for everybody you know and everybody you've ever known.
Yeah, it's that focus.
So you could use this 200, 300, 400, 500 different times, just asking that question. Then you can take it and reverse the vector and say, what is my motive toward my husband? What is my motive toward my brother? What is my motive toward my associate? What is my motive toward my mistress? And so forth. Mm-hmm. Now, again, you could just keep doing this and wind up using it 300, 400, 500 different times. Mm-hmm. So by the time you finish this exercise, you will have a greatly clarified mind about all of these people. Because if you know the motive of everyone that you know or have ever known, it really clears up your mind as to what was going on.
Yeah, so how do you separate assumptions? You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times people can assume without actually knowing, and then they put somebody else in a wrong category, or they put themselves in a wrong category. How do people avoid that with this scale?
First of all, with any scale, when you find the correct level, you will have an insight. So let's say you spot that your husband is at level 2. So, that explains why he did this and this and this.
Mm,
That is one of the ways you know you found the right level. If you don't have an insight or a realization or an epiphany, you found the wrong level.
I see, I see.
That's one thing. Now the next thing is all about observation.
Hmm.
Shut up and listen. People tell you their levels.
That's very true. That's
You
very
just have to
true.
pay attention.
Hmm.
So if you observe carefully what the person is doing, how they're doing it, what they're saying, what their body motion is like, what their behaviors are, see? And you just see what's there. Then the next thing is you only have to assess it against 7 choices. If I were to go out here on the street and stop some guy and say, "Excuse me, what's your wife's motivation toward you?" He would look at me like I was from Mars. He
Yeah,
would say,
like who knows this? Yeah.
how could I know that? There are thousands and thousands of possible motivations. No, there are only 7, and all the others are subsets of these.
Mm.
So once you know that you're only choosing between 7, it's not that hard.
Hmm.
It's like,
Yeah.
when you go to In-N-Out Burger, they have about 8 things on the menu. It's not hard. But you go
Yeah.
to a Chinese restaurant, there's like 200 things on the menu. That's a
Yeah.
tough choice. So I did all the heavy lifting by getting it down to the 7 aspects of each of these 35 things. So
Okay.
you're always selecting from at most 7. But let me tell you something beyond that. When a person looks at this, what is going to happen is in a matter of seconds, maybe 20 seconds, maybe 25 seconds, he will find a bracket. So you say to the guy, "What is your wife's motivation toward you?" And he's going to look at it, and I guarantee you in seconds, he will say something like, "Well, I know it's definitely not 6 or 7 because she's just nothing like that." So he got it down to 5. And then you say to him, "Well, why don't you just go ahead and read the text and then you can get it exactly?" He's going to want to do that because he's interested, see? He's going to want to know what is my wife's motivation toward me. So he reads
Hmm.
it and he comes back, "Well, now that I read it, I can see it's level 2. That explains why she does X, Y, and Z, and she does not do A, B, or C, because that is her motivation."
Hmm.
So his relationship with her just improved
Yeah.
because he
It's
has insight into her now. He
yeah.
sees what she's doing.
Hmm.
So when she does something, he can see, okay, she's doing it like level 2 is duty. Okay, that's the second highest motivation. Oh, she has a sense of duty to me. That's why she's doing it. See, that's different from level 1, which is love. Love is the highest motivation. See? So you get this person is a context and you see what they're about in this scale. Now, you could do that across all 35 scales.
Yeah.
So you could take your spouse and you could say, "Where is he on this scale? Where is he on this scale? Where is he on this scale? Where is he?" See? And by the time you finish doing that for 35 scales, your understanding of your spouse will be greater than his understanding of himself
Yeah.
because this is natural law.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, I started to tell you how I found this, and I didn't finish the explanation. So remember, I said by the time I had my bachelor's degree, I wanted to engineer the human psyche. So to make a long story short, I had a long career as a human development engineer, using engineering tactics, engineering strategies, engineering principles, engineering tools to help my clients. Now, as I was doing that, I started to notice incidentally that I could predict the outcome of the session. This became a routine thing.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So then I would say, I knew this was going to happen. So then I said, after a while, I came to realize that the client would be at a specific level on a specific scale. And as a result of our interaction, he'd go to the next level up. Now, I never told this to anyone, but I wrote it down.
My notes.
I kept notes. And as the decades rolled by, this happened more and more. And every time it did, I just got better at what I did because I knew where the session was going. I never told anyone anything like that. They had no idea what I was thinking or what I was writing down. I would just say to the guy, I would be able to determine by my techniques that this guy had a problem with his mother. I'd say, tell me about your problem with your mother. Right? So the guy starts talking, bop, and I can see as he's talking that he's at a specific level on a specific scale. He tells you. And then I would know that eventually he's going to get up to the next level. So 20 minutes into the session, he says, wait a minute. I just realized something. My mother is bop. That's why I have trouble with her. See, and the biofeedback that I was using would confirm that. I'd say, great, let's go on to something else. So now you have to realize that this experience of having the client go to the next level up that I already knew and had written down, that happened thousands and thousands of times over a 40-year period.
Yeah.
And each time it did, it verified my hypothesis.
Yeah.
Because the clients didn't know anything about this.
No.
So I just kept making notes and writing this down, see?
Yeah.
So by 1995, I had been doing this for a long time as a professional. I had about 32 scales that I had simply observed. Wow. There's no theory of septemics. Yeah. This is all direct empirical observation. I simply wrote down what I saw. Oh, he was at this level, and then he went to this level. I write it down, see? And then another client would come along at the same level, and he would go up to the same level, thus verifying the hypothesis. So, in 95, I was one day pondering a difficult client, and I realized that this client was at a level on a particular scale that I had not previously observed. Now, I had one scale in particular that had 6 levels in it that by then I absolutely knew was correct because I had been using it for decades. And then I said, this has a 7th level. And when I saw this level, I knew immediately where to insert it. That was obvious to me. So I inserted the 7th level into the 6th level scale. And at that moment, it manifested mathematically. Now, what that means is
all came together.
All of this data jumped out at me. And it went from being a scale, which is a line, to a plane, which is a body of data. So I now had not only a scale, I had this whole body of data relevant to this scale. And all of these different components interlocked like a Chinese puzzle. I said, whoa, I found something.
Yeah, that's a discovery.
I don't know what this is, but whatever the hell it is, it has to be natural law because it has mathematics embedded in it. Now, for those of you who are allergic to mathematics, let me explain this. I took 26 semesters of math and loved every minute of it. I think in math. It's not to me just something that's on a paper with a pencil. It's real. It's in life. It's embedded in things. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I see the mathematics in things. So when I saw this scale suddenly manifest like that, I said, wait, this is mathematical. Because let me tell you how math works. Okay. You start with an equation or a formula and you coax data out of it by using the laws of mathematics. That's how Einstein found E equals mc squared, by that same process. Everybody in the advanced math and physics community knows how he came up with that equation. It's not unknown to us, okay? It's very specific. Yeah. Same thing. He coaxed data and he came down eventually and he got to the end and he had E equals mc squared. E equals mc squared. Wow. See, that's like a new concept.
It is.
Okay. So
at that time,
when I saw these data jump out at me, I saw this has to be mathematical. So then I thought, wait a minute. I wonder how many of these other scales that I have are actually 7-level scales that had not been developed all the way, because you have to realize I wasn't developing anything.
Yeah.
I was just helping my clients and making notes.
Yeah.
So knowing what I was looking for, I inspected these other scales. In a short period of time, each of them went to 7 levels. And when it went to 7 levels, it manifested mathematically.
Yeah, everything just came to place. That is really interesting. It's like an epiphany. It's like, oh my goodness, it's like a triumphant moment where it's like, oh my goodness, this is really real. So I understand with what you're saying, because when everything comes together, oh my, it's like a movie in your mind, or everything is just coming together like a puzzle, just everything coming together. So I see what you're saying, and I love how the fact that you were like, I didn't encounter somebody before, but once I did, I was able to just realize like this was the missing piece. And now your aim of focus was finding that in the other one and the other scales. So I can totally see how this is something that's doable, because you're right there. You fall in one of these scales. Once you fall in one of these scales, you can learn how to resolve whatever issues that you're trying to resolve, or you can resolve other issues that you're surrounded by. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's a map for yourself to learn how to handle and manage yourself. I mean, it's like a manual, you know what I mean? We get an instructor manual when we get a car, or we get a toy, we get electronics. Like sounds like something that you do when you read, you can finally figure out what's going on within yourself. And it sucks because I'm looking at the time and I'm sad, because I'm like, man, I really want to go in deeper more. And I really want to, like, I'm actually intrigued. I'm listening to what you're saying. And I'm just like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. But I'm looking at the time and we don't have much time. So I'm really sad. So what can be some lasting words that we can like wrap up the show with, so that we can continue on thinking?
Okay. The data in this book are vital for every person.
Absolutely.
And can help you to achieve your goals faster and easier by explaining what might otherwise seem to be inexplicable or random.
Yes. Okay.
So people look at these things, they can't figure it out, and they get this book and it analyzes it for them. Now I see why my parents can't get along, or whatever it is. And I want to invite your listeners to my website, which is septemics.com. Septemics, where you can see what many readers have said, what many journalists have written, what the reviews are. You can read sections of the book itself. You can listen to a pre-recorded introduction to Septemics, which explains it to a new person. And if you do all that, you're probably going to want to buy the book, because it's very compelling information.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? How could you not? And ladies and gentlemen, if you guys do want to know more about Jim and all that he has to offer the world, because how could you not be intrigued with this conversation and this and the fact that you can finally figure out everything that you feel so lost in. I mean, in this world, we feel so consumed by it, but then this seems so simple. This seems like it all make more sense. And I think this is something that we all need to continue on thinking about. So go check him out. I even have his website on my website. You can find his logo right there. Just just click under his name and you'll have access to all the greatness that Jim has to offer the world so that you can continue on thinking. So with that being said, bye.